What's up, everybody? Joe Brown here. This is the Heresy Financial Show, and today we are talking about the U.S. personal savings rate. It has absolutely fallen off of a cliff, and this is especially concerning considering the fact that it had spiked to monstrous historic levels on the backs of the stimulus in 2020. So today we are going to look at what happened to the U.S. personal savings rate and exactly why this is happening. Ready? Let's dive in. Sponsor of today's video is Swan Bitcoin. Swan Bitcoin is my favorite way to stack sats. They are the easiest, the cheapest, and the most secure way to build up your position in Bitcoin, especially as the price of Bitcoin has been volatile and has been moving down recently. It is historically on sale. And as you buy with a dollar cost averaging approach, that means you're buying less of it when it's higher and more of it when it's lower. That lowers your cost, your average cost over time. And my favorite way to do this is by using Swan Bitcoin. They make it extremely easy. And if you use my link in the description below, you'll get $10 worth of Bitcoin for free just for signing up. All right, take a look with me at this chart. This is Liz Ann Saunders on Twitter posted this chart recently. This is the US personal savings as a percent of disposable personal income, which is important here. So we can take a look here, and the last time that it was this low was back in 2013. Now, this is an impressive decline in the US personal savings rate, specifically because of this massive spike. Everybody remembers the stimulus checks. Many people refinanced their homes and basically cut their expenses because they got their mortgage lower. Many people were able to do cash out refinances as well. So they got a massive inflow of cash into their savings accounts. But we've seen the savings just drop and plummet, fall off of a cliff here. The question is why? Well, we're going to look at the practical reason why. We're also going to look at the theoretical reason why to understand from an economics perspective what is going on. Basically, from a practical perspective, everybody got a lot of cash. Everybody felt very rich. Everybody went out and started spending more and more money. And now prices are much higher. And even though wages have gone up, they have not gone up on average as much as the prices, the cost of living has gone up. And so people are now having to spend more just in order to maintain their standard of living. That has pushed many people into increasing their debt and depleting their savings. That's the short answer, the practical side of what is going on here. So why does this happen from a theoretical, from the economics side of things? This comes down to how money operates in terms of the information that prices send out to economic actors. So we have to look at this from two angles. Number one, we have to look at the cost of money, the price of money, and then we also have to look at the quantity of money. So let's look at the cost of money, which is interest rates. That's the price of acquiring more money, is the interest rate that you have to pay. In a completely free market, which we don't have today, but in a completely free market where the money supply was not controlled by a central entity, and you had a fixed supply of money, the way that the price of money, the interest rate on money would work is that if the savings pool in the economy is very large, the interest rates would be low. And if the savings pool is very small, interest rates would be very high. Why is that? Because if everybody has a ton of savings, then the savings pool is abundant. So that means if you're a saver and you want to go out and you want to get a return on your money, and you want to lend to somebody, you're going to be competing with a ton of different lenders. You and your parents and your family and your cousins and your neighbors, everybody's going to have a bunch of savings. So you're going to be going out trying to find people who want to borrow money from you. And if I want to charge you 2%, well, my neighbor might only charge you 1%. So we are all competing against each other. The savings pool is large. And so anybody who wants to borrow has the negotiation, has the strength in this negotiation in order to demand a lower and lower interest rate. So instead of lending as a saver, you might say, hey, that's not worth it because that return is so low. So you might go and spend it on stuff. You might spend it on investments. You might build projects. You might go and try and start a business. And so the signal that a large savings pool sends to the entire economy is go out there and spend. Part of that is going to be from the interest rates being low, because that's the signal that people are receiving. That's the price of money. So the savings pool is large. That's the quantity of money side, and the interest rates then are going to be very low. The signal that everybody receives is to go out there and spend, go out there and invest, go out there and have fun. You can take risks because there is an ample amount of money in savings. On the opposite side, if the savings pool is very low, now suddenly it's the exact opposite. Anybody who does have some savings, they're the ones with the power of the negotiation. Anybody who wants to borrow is going to be competing for the few who have savings. There's not that many people who have savings, and so I can charge 10% on my money if I want to lend it out, maybe 15%, maybe 20%, whatever it is. And anybody who has to borrow will be forced to pay those higher interest rates if they choose to borrow, because they don't have the power of the negotiation. There's not that many people out there with savings. The savings pool is very small, so interest rates go up to compensate for that. Now, the savings pool being small, that's the quantity of money being very low in the system, also makes people very conservative. Nobody's going to go out there and recklessly spend if they don't have a bunch of savings. Everybody's going to be trying to save because the incentive will be, hey, I want to be able to lend out for 20%. So they're going to start saving as fast and as quickly as they can. They're not going to be going out there and spending recklessly, especially on consumable goods. They're not going to be going out there and taking risks, because if a project fails, they don't have anything to rely on. And so the signal that is sending to all economic actors is be conservative, don't take risks, don't spend, and rebuild the total pool of savings. So both from a cost of money standpoint, the interest rate, and the quantity of money, the supply of money side of things, interest rates and the supply of money will influence what economic actors do with their money. If we take a look back at this chart here, we can see that the amount of money that flooded the system, the savings rate spiked. And it stayed elevated for quite some time. We know throughout this time as well, interest rates were also very low. The federal funds rate was pushed low by the Federal Reserve, but also interest rates along the entire curve were low. There was a lot of liquidity injected into the system, and so the signal that was being sent out was one of abundance. The savings pool is large. But we have to take a step back here, because I gave you an example about what would happen in a free market, and we are looking at the example of what happened without a free market. So the signal was the same. The signal was sent that the savings pool is large and abundant, so go spend and take risks and get into debt. But the reality is the savings pool didn't change. Let's say I went right now and I gave every single American citizen $1 million. Let's say I've got the Federal Reserve on speed dial, and I say, hey, J-Pow, we really need some cash. Print me up $1 million per person and deposit it into every person's bank account. At first, everybody would think that they had an extra $1 million worth of purchasing power. But as soon as people go out and try and exercise that right and spend that purchasing power, people would realize very quickly that they don't actually have $1 million worth of purchasing power. They think they do, but as soon as that money starts to get spent, all the cars will disappear from used car lots and new car lots. All the computers will disappear off the shelves, out of inventory. All the food will disappear off of grocery store shelves. All of the houses will get bought up that are currently for sale. Literally everything will suddenly cease to have any supply. Demand will immediately soak up everything. And then there will be some people with some of the money left over. They'll go out there and they'll try and buy something. They won't be able to buy it because the supply is gone. So they'll go to the used market, let's say, somebody who had bought it previously, and have to pay a much higher premium for it because now we've got this massive demand spike. So then as that money works its way throughout the economy and people try and spend that $1 million, everything would explode in price so quickly that people would realize they never really had $1 million worth of purchasing power. The purchasing power in the system didn't actually change. The purchasing power was the same. So it would send a signal out to the economy to go spend, get into debt, recklessly buy things, whether it's stocks or consumable goods or real assets, go out and buy things. but the purchasing power didn't change. If you take a pizza that has 8 slices and you want 16 slices, so you cut up each slice into 2 more slices, into 2 total slices, that means you have 16 pieces now, but you have the same amount of pizza. Pizza represents the amount of wealth in the system. The slices represent the amount of money in the system. Money just measures wealth. It doesn't actually, money's not actually wealth itself. And so if you give everybody a bunch of extra cash, it doesn't create more wealth. It just makes people think that they have a claim on wealth that they don't actually have. And when the society then goes out and tries to exercise that right to claim the wealth that they thought they had, they realize there's not enough wealth in the system for me to be able to do this. And by the time the money starts to work its way through, prices are so high that everybody is now worse off because the prices of everything now are so much higher that you are worse off than you were before. Really, it comes down to you depleted the pool of savings. And that's why we're seeing not a return to where we were in 2019 or 2018 or 2017 or 2016 or 2015 or 2014, but 2013. The savings rate has plummeted so quickly and so steeply that we are going back to where we were almost a decade ago. Because it's just like if you were playing the game of Monopoly and the banker doubled everybody's money. At first, everybody would think they were richer. They would buy properties, they'd buy houses, they'd buy hotels, and then the money would run out. The expenses for going around the board would be much higher, and people would start going bankrupt much faster. And so that is what's going on here. The savings rate did increase because of the amount of new money that entered the system, but it wasn't real purchasing power, and it sent a false signal of abundance and a false signal of wealth to many economic actors, and people spent that money thinking they had more purchasing power than they really did, and the cost of living for everybody went up as a result, leaving everybody worse off than they were before. Moral of the story is next time this happens, because mark my words, it will happen again, we're going to have another crash and they're going to deal with it with more stimulus, more bailout than they did last time. Next time this happens, don't buy stuff, don't buy consumables, buy real assets, buy sound money, gold, silver, Bitcoin, buy stocks, buy real estate, buy things that will increase in value. Don't buy things that you will use up and throw away in the garbage can like most people did. I remember about April or June, May, whenever in 2020, whenever one of the first stimulus checks came out, I was in the mall, saw a store, it was either Gucci or Louis Vuitton or one of the fancy clothes stores, and the line for that store was wrapped around through the mall for as far as the eye could see. People were all spending their stimulus checks on things that have no real value, that will wear out just like these t-shirts will. Doesn't matter what logo is printed on it, and they are wasting it. And just like in Lebanon right now, going through the worst hyperinflation in the world right now, everybody's driving luxury cars and using luxury items because they felt rich before the collapse, and now that's all they have is those luxury goods. Instead of saving up and preparing and getting ready for the hard times, they spent it all on luxuries and consumables because they thought that they were well off. They thought they were rich, and they thought that the purchasing power in the system was much higher than it really was. Don't be that guy. As always, I really appreciate you guys. Thank you so much for watching. Have a great day.